Hello and welcome. So you want to buy a car in 2021. Well, let me tell you a little something about using my Dr. Wigo hat, where I got my doctorate in strategic management, which includes a study of economics, which includes a lot of supply and demand. So I know a lot about supply and demand. And here's the problem. Well, it's more of a problem. It's a perfect storm of a problem. So we had a pandemic, remember? People didn't want to buy cars. They didn't want to go out shopping. They didn't know if they were going to have jobs. So car sales, the demand for cars plummeted. So manufacturers started putting big rebates on these things and really trying to, and by the way, stop making as many, cut back on the supply. In fact, the rebates were huge on the 2020 models through the pandemic because they didn't want to put big rebates on the 2021 models because they wanted to get rid of these first. By the way, that's why I got such a great deal on Stormtrooper here, because they gave me a fantastic rebate. It was $10 per horsepower, so it was like almost $5,000 rebate. So the supply got curtailed. Now, by the way, when people aren't buying new cars, they're not trading in their old cars, so the used car supply dropped. But of course, this wasn't a problem because the demand for used cars had also been depressed because the demand for all cars was depressed. So, and the rental car companies stopped buying new cars because nobody was renting cars because nobody was traveling. So they cut way back on their expenditures. They used to buy tens of thousands of cars for their fleets. They stopped. So another big slump in demand. But the supply got cut too. Okay. Well, let's move into 2021. We have a vaccine. People are starting to go back. So people now want all that. By the way, this is the thing about demand for cars. It does not come and go. It is not really that cyclical because people constantly need new cars. But in 2020, they pushed it back. So all that pent-up demand hits 2021, along with the people who now wanted to buy a car in 2021 because that was their plan all along. Their lease was running out, whatever. So now we have a huge surge in demand. But remember, the new car dealers cut their supply, and the used car supply was also cut. Oh, and guess who else needs to buy a lot of cars now? The rental car companies. So they come into the market buying, and by the way, they can't get new cars like they normally do, so they start buying up used cars. So the price of used cars skyrockets. In fact, I have a chart, hopefully it's here, which shows that the price of used cars in May of 2021 is between 20 and 30% higher than it was a year ago. Actually, it was depressed in 2020, so it's actually even higher. It's 20 to 30% above normal, which means you want to buy a $20,000 used car? No, it's going to be a $26,000 used car. Oh, and you want to buy a new car? Well, we don't have any of those. Oh, because remember, there's a chip shortage because when all the stuff was going on in the pandemic, a lot of the semiconductor factories kind of laid back and stopped producing as many chips. So now there's a chip shortage, so they can't make the new cars as fast as they need to. And so there's no new car supply, and because of the huge demand, there's no used car supply and the lack of trade-ins over the past year. So basically, there are no cars. In fact, you can watch videos on YouTube of people driving around showing you empty car lots. So that's the problem we're in. But you want to buy a car. Well, let me give you some advice. Here are my tips for dealing with this car market. Number one, wait. If there's any way you can put off buying a car, now is the time to put off buying a car. You do not want to be paying 20 to 30% above the regular price because you know how cars depreciate. Well, right now they're actually appreciating. The price is going up. But can't possibly continue. So you're going to pay 30% above what the car is worth. And then it's when the market conditions, when the supply and demand stabilize, it'll go back to the normal price. Well, that's great, except now, and now your car will depreciate it. So now your car will be worth possibly 50% less than you paid for it a year, well, buying it now. A year from now, your car may be worth 50% less. You'll have lost half of the money you spent on that car. And if you go to trade it in, you may find you're way upside down and you're screwed, you're stuck with that car. And by the way, to get because the price was so high, you probably went with an extended payment like 6 or 7 years, and now you're going to be upside down for 6 or 7 years rather than just. So wait. If you can do it, please wait. While you're waiting, here's a concept. Work on getting your credit in order. Pay off any, credit cards, especially if you have like a few that have little small balances left on them. Take the money you would have been paying on the payments on the new car and use it to pay down some of your credit card. Try to get your credit score up so that when you do finally get to buy a new car or a used car and you finance it, you get one of these great interest rates, which are available even now, even with in this crazy market. Again, in April, I got 2.59% on that car. New cars are doing like 2.39%. Well, this is in my area. Your mileage may vary. Oh, and by the way, if you end up buying new down the road, once things settle down, you may be able to get an even better interest rate from the manufacturer, because now once that chip shortage is gone, they're going to find themselves with a glut of cars they need to sell fast. Here you come and here come the rebates and the incentives and the low interest rates. So try to repair your credit score. Oh, and the other thing you want to do while you're waiting, join a credit union. Credit unions have the best interest rates typically on new and used car loans. So if you're not already in and by the way, they usually are restricted, but sometimes it's if you went to a school, or see if you can find a credit union that you qualify to be a member of. But you say, but wait, Dr. Wigo, I can't wait. My lease is up. I have to get a new car. Aha, grasshopper. You are in possibly one of the best positions anyone will ever be in a leased car market, because your car that you leased has a residual value that they calculated back 3, 4, 5 years ago when you took out the lease, and they have to sell you the car at that price. Well, I guarantee you in this used car market, that price, that residual, is anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 under the value of the car. I believe, if you watch the channel, you know that when I totaled my Cadillac, right before the end of the lease, the insurance company paid it off, and because I had totaled it while it was still mine, the leasing company had to give me the difference between the residual value and what the insurance paid, which was $5,000. So I got $5,000, which if I had turned the car in, the leasing company would have gotten it. Well, right now, if you're sitting there with a car that's worth $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, even up to $10,000 over the residual, you do not want to give that money to the dealer, to the leasing company. You want to buy the car. And by the way, they usually you can get a pretty decent deal. You can get reasonable interest rates. You can take out a 5-year used car loan on your used car because you've used it, right? Which now gives you months, even years, to wait for the market to stabilize. Then when the market stabilizes, or even better, if you're in a position like you have more than one car, sell buy the car that came off lease, the coming off lease, then sell it and get that $5,000-$10,000 difference, put it in the bank, and wait to use it on your new car. Now, like if you're like me, like most people, you don't have you have to have a car. So buy it and drive it, and then yeah, you'll end up losing that $5,000 to $10,000. But by the way, you won't be overpaying for a new car when you go finally to buy one. So if you're coming off a lease, if you're at lease end, don't panic. Buy the car, unless for some insane reason your residual value is so high that the car is not worth it, which by the way happens a lot normally. But in this market where they're 20, 30% above normal, I almost guarantee if you're coming out of a lease, your car is worth thousands of dollars more than the residual value, which means you can buy that car and then drive it until the market stabilizes and then sell it, use it as a trade-in. I know, but I've always leased. Okay, if you lease now, well, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about if you do something now. So hold on a second. If you are going to buy a car, buy a new car. And you say, no, I always buy a used car. Yes, used cars are 20 to 30% above their normal prices. You will be paying a huge premium. So you go buy a new car. Well, but wait, what about the dealers doing extra markup and all this stuff? Yeah, they are doing some of that. But here's a way around some of that. A lot of dealers will let you order a car at MSRP, and you can sign the contract to buy the car at that price. Of course, and in the contract, you have it say, well, of course, if any incentives come along, which they won't if it comes in anytime soon, yes, you may have to wait months for the car to show up. But when you get it, you will pay MSRP and not the $15,000 over MSRP. I just saw one on yourautoadvocate.com, which, by the way, we'll come back and talk about. This is their merch. But it was a $32,000 car, and they had put on additional dealer markup of $15,000, or 50%. Now, it was an SUV that was hot, that everybody wanted. Do not pay that. By the way, here's a little problem. Here's what happens when let's say you buy it, you go ahead and say, well, I'll just eat it. I'll pay the $10,000 additional dealer markup. Well, when people are lending you money to buy a car, they have this thing, banks have this thing called loan to value. And they like the loan to value, the loan to be less than 100% of the price of the car, ideally less than 90% of the price. And of course, perfect for them is like less than 80% of the price of the car. That's why, putting money down will often get you a better interest rate, get you better things because it makes the bank happy. What about a lease? Well, in a lease, right, you're paying, you got that residual value, and you're paying the excess over that. Well, when you have a $10,000, $15,000 excess over that, that's all going to be factored into the lease. OC Motivator, I'll try to link down below, just went and looked at a Charger Scat Pack, and they were going to throw like $12,000, $15,000 additional dealer markup, and so his lease payment was going to be $1,200 a month. Now, by the way, the lease payment on a normally priced Charger or Challenger, they're around 50-ish, would be around $600 a month. So basically, his lease payment was going to be double, and he was going to be stuck with that lease payment for 3 years, paying double. So don't pay the additional dealer markup. And again, the only way you may be able to get around it is by ordering a new car to your specs, which, by the way, is better for you. And then, of course, you get them to agree to sell it to you at MSRP. And then you put, you usually put like $1,000 down as a binder. And then, by the way, if they try to screw you at the other end, you can hire a lawyer. But generally, by the time the car comes in, it means the chip shortage is probably over, which means all those additional dealer markups are going to start going away anyway. So do that. Okay? Don't pay the additional dealer markup. It'll make your loan to value too high, which will drive up your interest rates, will make your lease payments insane. So don't do it. Next thing you got to do is shop around a lot. Not all dealers are insanely greedy, just most. So you may find one, especially if it's a dealer you have a relationship with. I have a buddy who buys he buys an Acura from the same dealer and leases it every 3 years. I have a feeling they would not try to screw him because they know they'd be cutting off a future income stream of all the cars he's going to buy down the road. Now, they may make him go to MSRP, but they will not be doing additional dealer markup, not if they want to keep him as a customer. And again, if you shop around, you may find a good dealer. You may, again, OC Motivator tried, and with Dodge, it's a little harder. Acura maybe. Luxury brands might be a little better at it. But shop around. Talk to a lot of dealers. Oh, and be flexible. Don't be stuck on a trim or a color. Because if you do that, you're just signing over your life because they're going to find a way to jack it up. Whereas, I don't know if you know, but my sister likes to save money on cars, so she's bought a purple car in the past because they're not very popular. So she got a huge discount. Well, same thing. Don't get the popular color. Don't get the popular SUV. Again, get one you can afford. Buy a cheap car. Hey, Veloster, 20 grand. If you can get one, of course. But buy a cheap car. Buy a car way cheaper than the one you want down the road. Yeah, you may have to pay a little extra $1,000 or $2,000. But again, when it's 20% of $20,000 versus 20% of $50,000, yeah, that's $10,000 versus $4,000. So buy a cheap car to tide you over if you have to buy a car. But be patient, be flexible. This is how you're going to get a good deal on a car. This is something you may never have thought of before. But you want to get a pre-purchase inspection on any used car you're going to buy. And in fact, I would recommend that you get a pre-purchase inspection on any new car you buy. Because these chip shortage things, right? If you've seen the news stories, they kept building the cars and parking them in parking lots and the infield of racing tracks and all sorts, waiting for the chips. Well, okay, so those cars, I don't know, have you ever left your car and not turned the engine over for 3 months and the tires get flat because they're not rolling and the engine? There's going to be all sorts of problems with those cars once they start putting the chips in them and rolling them out. So you may want to have a pre-purchase inspection on a new car, but you absolutely want it because, by the way, with the supply so constrained, dealers are buying cars to resell that in the past they would not have bought. The ones that have been in an accident, or it wasn't major, but you never know. Again, your auto advocate, they had a thing. A guy bought a car, had a Carfax, said no accidents. Then when he went to sell it, the dealer pulled a Carfax and said it had been in 2 accidents. What? Yeah. So the first dealer was either lying or I don't know. We don't know. I don't know the whole story. But I do know that when he bought it, there was a Carfax that he had a copy of that said no accidents. And when he went to sell it, the Carfax said it had 2 accidents. And it deducted like $5,000 off the price they were willing to give him on the trade-in. So, pre-purchase inspection. They'll tell you if there's been an accident. And it's usually just a few $100. And so when you're paying, and if you're going to be paying an extra $4,000, $5,000, pay an extra $200 or $300 to have a pre-purchase inspection. The best piece of advice I have for you, if you're going to buy a car and you can't wait, yourautoadvocate.com. They will be linked down below. I think I'm going to write it on the screen. I'm going to link it down below. It's a website, but it's also a YouTube channel. And as a matter of fact, this week, I'm speaking in June, middle of June. They just put up a 50 video series. Now they're short videos, like 1, 2, 3, 5 minutes, called Deal School, where they run you through everything you need to know about buying a car and the process and what things you have to worry about and what dealers will try to do to you and what they will teach you everything you need to know about buying a car. And in this market, you absolutely have to have this information. If you've watched my videos, you know I used Your Auto Advocate when I was buying this car, and they told me about what I was probably going to have to pay for it, and that's what I paid for. It was less than MSRP, and I got some incentives. I got a big incentive, but they said this is about what you're going to pay, and it was pretty much exactly what I paid. Then when I bought this used, now I bought this in 2021 in April, so the market had already come up. In fact, I paid $20,000. It was a $24,000 new car. I paid $20,000 a year old and 15,000 miles. This car should have been $18,000. I paid an extra like 10% because it existed. You could buy it. But it's a cheap car. It was an extra couple of grand. I put some money down. I got the car payments down real low. So I'm happy with my decision. But if it had been a $50,000 car, I wouldn't have bought it because I wasn't going to pay $60,000. Or as OC Motivator found out, $66,000 for a Charger Scat Pack. Go try to configure one that costs that much. You take every option, you still don't quite get there. So, but YourAutoAdvocate.com. And by the way, a lot of their stuff is free. The videos are all free. They're on YouTube. I think they'll let you look up like 1 or 2 VIN numbers for free. But if you're really serious, and by the way, this market, you're probably going to need to look up a lot more than 1 or 2 VIN numbers because you're going to have to shop around a lot and look at a lot of cars. But it's like, I think, $20 for 3 or 6 months. It's well worth the money. Like I said, I bought 2 cars using them. I signed up for their services. This is not sponsored. I don't get anything from them, although they did give me a T-shirt because I plugged them in one of my other videos. But it was after the fact. It wasn't, a sponsorship. It was they sent me a T-shirt after the fact. And then, by the way, I went and bought another one of their T-shirts because I like their T-shirts. They have nice merch too. So anyway, so use YourAutoAdvocate.com. Go do their deal school. Do their whole thing. You will not be sorry, and maybe you'll end up getting a good deal, or at least not a horrible deal. That's what you have to shoot for in this market. You have to shoot for not a horrible deal. You want a reasonable deal. That's what I have to say about buying a car in 2021. It's the worst possible combination of supply and demand factors that I've pretty much ever seen in my life. Used cars have never been 30% above normal prices, ever. I mean, going back years. I mean, it just doesn't happen. But it's happened now because, again, of the confluence of factors that I talked about at the beginning of the video. So it's a horrible market. So wait if you can. Clean up your credit while you're waiting. If you can't wait, like it's a lease ends particularly, I told you, buy the car. By the way, before you do that, you still might want to join a credit union and some of the stuff I told you to do while you're waiting. Buy new, not used. I think I forgot to mention, you also get a warranty when you buy new. Now, I got a warranty on this guy because it was only a year old, and Hyundai has a 5-year warranty for second purchasers. First purchasers get 10 years, but second purchasers only get 5 years. But I still have 4 years to go on my warranty on this car. So that way you get a warranty purchase inspection thing. Scotty Kilmer has a video out right now about a bunch of used cars that have bad engines, and their engines have been recalled, and you're supposed to take it back. But in this market, do you think if someone bought one of those that was under recall that they went and took care of that? Probably not. Now, and again, remember some of these like Hyundais, and by the way, I think one of the cars that he was talking about was a Hyundai. With the 10-year warranty for the first purchaser, well, when you buy it, if it's over 5 years old, you don't get a warranty. So now with a recall, they're still supposed to fix it. Oh, but they found a fix where they did it with software. Watch Scotty's video. He says he said it's a bad thing in the engine. It's miscast. He said you can't fix that with software, and he's a car mechanic. So shop around a lot. Be patient and flexible. Pre-purchase inspection. And number 7, use yourautoadvocate.com or any resource like that. Use Edmunds, use Kelley Blue Book. There's lots of them out there. Again, I like Your Auto Advocate, but you don't have to use them. But find although the Deal School is free, so I would watch all those videos since they're free. And there's some other people that have a series on how to buy cars, and do your homework. This is not the kind of market where you can just walk in blindly and say, I'll take that one and pay whatever they have, because they will screw you to the wall. And they'll give you like 9-year payment. I don't think any bank will go 9, but they'll go 7 now. They go 7 years. When I was young, 5 years was a long car note. Most people wanted 3 or 4. Now it's 6 and 7 years, which means you're stuck with that car and you'll be upside down for a long time. So that's my accent. I will put all the things here on the screen, or I think I'm on this side of the frame, so I'll put them over here. Here's my recommendations. Try not to buy a car, but if you're gonna, do some of this stuff. That's it for this week. I'll see you next time when hopefully I'm back under the hood.